Live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight, Amarachi Ubani.
Good evening and welcome. Tonight, the Senate summons Aviation Minister over air safety. Nigeria drops charges against 7 Russians standing trial for illegal arms importation. All Progressives Congress launches in Anambra, presents Senator Chris Ngige as party's candidate. And at least 9 people are killed in a fire at a clothing factory in Bangladesh's capital, Dhaka. On business news tonight, the federal government slashes the cost of registering businesses by 50%.
And on sports news tonight, defending champions Kano Pillars shoot to the top of the Globe Premier League, beating title rivals Enyimba in a rescheduled game.
The Minister of Aviation, Mrs. Stella Odua, should be appearing before lawmakers in a matter of days, perhaps, to brief them on the state of the aviation sector. The summons follows a motion moved by the chairman, Senate's Committee on Aviation, Mr. Hope Uzodimma, who raised alarm over what he termed a record 7 air mishaps within the last 2.5 years, which have killed 140 people. He said the resurgence of plane crashes since 2011 is suggestive of a deep-seated systemic problem, that must be resolved to stop the unnecessary loss of lives.
Within the last 2.5 years, Nigeria has witnessed a record 7 fatal air mishaps. Allied Airlines crashed on 22nd June 2012 in Ghana, killing 10 people on ground. Dana Airlines crashed on 3rd June 2012 in Lagos, killing about 153 people on board. Nigeria Police Force helicopter crashed on 14th March 2012, killing 4 people. OAS helicopter crashed on July 29, 2011, killing 3 people. Taraba State Governor's aircraft crashed on October 25, 2012. An Augusta 109 helicopter crashed on 15th December 2012, killing 6 people. Associated Airlines crashed on 3rd October 2013. During the march, this shows that about 192 people have been killed in plane crashes between 2011 till date. Federal lawmakers are worried.
The experiences and the record of what is happening makes a lie of all of this media wash, which has turned into an obscene propaganda to promote a minister, to promote a government, and we keep having crashes every day. I gather in Lagos that plane was said to be on a test flight, and when it took off, it was not to pick passengers.
This is not the first time a motion of this sort is being brought on the floor of the Senate. When the Dana airline plane crashed last year, the same motion was moved, and the Senate ordered an investigation into the cause of the crash.
If you remember the last time we debated the air crash of Dana Air, I think this chamber was very charged. We're all very down, and we made certain recommendations. Nothing has been done.
But has anything changed in the aviation sector since the Senate investigated the Dana plane crash?
Most of the experienced and the type-rated and the properly licensed inspectors in NCAA are either becoming too old, to say the least, are not even very few. The real problem with NCAA is of a bearing influence of the ministry.
The Senate is set to begin the same dance again to investigate the cause of the Associated Airline plane crash. However, in addition to the investigations, the Senate has summoned the Minister of Aviation to appear at plenary and brief lawmakers on the true state of the aviation sector and the high number of deaths from plane crashes in the last 2.5 years. But would this again be another dance in futility? Linda Akibe, Channels Television News.
Meanwhile, the Minister of Aviation, Mrs. Stella Odua, has denied any form of interference in the regulatory activities of the Nigeria Civil Aviation Authority. Answering questions from journalists in Abuja on the suspension of the operations of Dana Airlines, Ms. Odua explained that the ministry only supervises the activities of agencies and parastatals under it. Insisting that the nation's airspace remains safe, Ms. Odua condemned claims that the ministry is more interested in revenue generation than safety of the airspace.
There are shared responsibility. My responsibility as the Minister of the sector, Minister responsible for aviation sector, mine is to provide the leadership to ensure that there is policy, and his is to implement those policies and regulatorily be responsible for the sector. But am I his boss? Yes, I'm his boss. I'm all their bosses. So that you can also report. But next to that, there is responsibility that I cannot perform, that he has to perform. He's the man on the seat, he's the regulator, and he's the one that regulates. But government pays his bill, and so some decision and most administrative decisions, government has to be in agreement for those decisions to be applicable. Again, the Abuja Declaration clearly states that states administratively oversight regulatory body. However, regulators are regulatorily responsible to regulate, and I'm sure you know what that means, which means professionally to do what he needs to do in ensuring that the sector is safe and secured. That's his responsibility. I am interested in revenue generating because we need to generate revenue. Otherwise, the sector will collapse. Otherwise, we will not be able to sustain what we have attained so far. Otherwise, the sector will not grow. However, the revenue generating has nothing to do with compromises on security and safety. Indeed, it's the revenue generated that will buy the infrastructure for those securities and for those safety equipment and safety infrastructure, without which you will not have a safety aviation sector to operate within.
Minister of Aviation Stella Odua answering questions concerning revenue generation and the safety of our airspace. Away from aviation matters, in a bid to ensure the cabotage vessel financing fund is not misapplied to the detriment of the country's maritime sector, the House of Representatives has begun an investigation into the fund. At a hearing today, the House explained that it intends to find out if the law, which was passed 10 years ago, has impacted on indigenous shipping in the maritime sector. The investigation also looks at how well the funds have been used since its inception. Meanwhile, after a year of legal wrangling, 7 Russian sailors charged with arms trafficking have been set free. 7 were among 15 Russian sailors charged with illegally bringing weapons into Nigeria last year, after authorities intercepted a ship on October 23rd and found on board several guns and thousands of rounds of ammunition. Confirming that the court has dropped the case against the 7 sailors, their lawyer, Ogidigba Mobosa, added that the 2 Nigerians who had been aboard the ship had been charged with wrongfully telling the Russians that they had permission to enter Nigerian territory with weapons. The boat was operated by a Nigerian shipping company, Blue Sea Maritime. On to some politics now. Chairman of the Independent Electoral Commission, INEC, Professor Tahiru Jega, has attributed the success of elections in the country to the adoption of professional ethics by its workforce. At a forum on ethics in election in Abuja, Professor Jega also emphasized the need for electoral officers not to engage in activities that will jeopardize the credibility of the forthcoming 2015 general elections.
questions of ethic and integrity in elections are very, very important. We need to constantly remind ourselves as election management bodies that the elections we conduct must reflect the highest is it not value, but the highest expression of integrity, and it must be done in such a manner that it is accepted as conducted with integrity. And questions of ethics are very, very important, and we have to constantly remind ourselves, remind the politicians, remind the media, remind all categories of stakeholders about the need to reflect ethical conduct in whatever we do. It is important as an underpinning principle for good democratic governance.